SB 880 closes the bullet button loophole in California's assault weapons ban.
It redefines assault weapons to include military-style semi-automatic firearms that do not have a fixed ammunition magazine.
These types of modifications have no legitimate use for sport hunters or competitive shooters.
The bill requires such weapons to be registered with the Department of Justice and prohibit the future sale, purchase, or possession of such weapons in California.
The so-called loophole wasn't created by us. The so-called loophole was created by the California Department of Justice.
Rifles are composed of less than 3% or a little bit more than 3% of all gun deaths or all gun crimes. That's rifles as a whole. These competitions that include people from all over the world who come to shoot. And you know what? They can't compete here in California because they have to put a mechanical magazine locking device on their guns and therefore become uncompetitive. These are, once again, the most commonly owned firearms in the country. To say that it's only going to reduce firearm sales by 10%, it once again is grossly understating the loss to the industry.
We call it the bullet button here, but it's really an ammunition feeding device is all that it is. It's a technical term, and you're going to destroy all these very valuable firearms, and you are also impacting many citizens who can't afford to go out and buy new firearms because of a stroke of a pen here.
Chairman, I believe this will have fiscal impact in excess of our threshold. I will move it to suspense. And in addition, it's come to my attention there have been an amendment prior to the hearing. Is that correct? Do we have hard copies of those amendments? Have they been distributed to the committee? Well, frankly, there's no need to even distribute them to me. That's unconscionable. This is a very important bill affecting a lot of people in the state of California. The moment of the vote, we get a committee amendment. It may be substantial, it may not be, but that's not the way to do business. That is not the way to conduct the people's business. That's not the way to make an amendment. I object to that. My motion to remain on suspense stands. This is but another argument to leave it on suspense so somebody can know what we're voting on.
If you make it easier for the predator, there will be more predators. Knives kill 5 times more Americans than all rifles combined. Preventable medical errors, malpractice. We're talking about doctors here with malpractice kill about 98,000 people a year. That's more than 300 times the number killed by rifles. I ask for a no vote on this bill. It's a violation of our constitutional rights.
By banning what amounts to millions of commonly owned hunting and sporting rifles, SB 880 plainly conflicts with the Second Amendment. As the Supreme Court noted, arms, in quote, typically possessed by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes or those, quote, in common use are protected. Should SB 880 be enacted, it will result in immediate litigation against the state to prevent enforcement of what amounts to a de facto ban on a massive number of lawfully owned firearms that have no association with crime.
We ought to rethink all of our gun laws and give more opportunity for more people to shoot back, to not be victims like the woman that my friend from Bakersfield talked about.
Lou, aye. Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Stone? Stone, no.
Okay, that bill passes 5-2.
Laura, aye. Bates? No. Bates, no. Bell? Bell, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. McGuire? McGuire, aye. Mendoza? Nielsen? Nielsen, no.
Clerk will open the roll. Members, this is SB 880, lifting the call. Clerk will close the roll. Ayes 42, noes 30. The measure passes.
We're doing to present Senate Bill 1235, which offers a comprehensive approach to the sale of ammunition to ensure that criminals and other dangerous individuals cannot purchase ammunition.
This bill will require ammunition vendors to be licensed, ammunition purchasers to be screened, and sales records to be collected to aid in law enforcement investigations.
Currently, these databases that we're talking about relying on have been noted time and time again to be more than fallible. The other thing that's not noted in here is potential civil rights litigation. As has been put into practice in Sacramento County, in essence, law enforcement has used these databases to basically, if someone fits the description and purchased ammunition of a particular caliber, they then become potential suspects and or at least subjects of investigation by law enforcement. Sac PD DOD has admitted that they in fact do that, utilizing this database in order to go after individuals simply because they fit the description.
This bill would impose drastic and unjustified restrictions on law-abiding gun owners while doing nothing to reduce violent crime. We have to recall that ammunition is a consumable, meaning it can cease to exist, and in essence this could be requiring the Attorney General to keep track of items that may no longer exist.
All the restrictions on law-abiding citizens, they have to jump through hoops, and it's very easy for the author and for the supporters of this legislation to say it's no big deal, it's just a card swipe. Any diminution of a core civil right is a diminution of a right that should not occur.
Mr. Speaker, I think we have a novel concept here, a new one for me anyways, is that in this bill, sections 12, 15, and 16 amend an initiative that's qualified for the ballot but hasn't even been voted on yet. I believe it's been proposed by our Lieutenant Governor. How can we amend? Don't we have a constitutional or a statutory problem here in amending something that hasn't even become law yet and that's proposed to go to the voters for a vote?
Under the initiative process and by statute, we are allowed to take this action today. I'm sorry.
What statute or rule would allow us to do that?
Mr. Gallagher, Ledge Council has reviewed the item in front of us and has determined that the initiative could be amended should this legislature take action on the item before us. I should note that the vote threshold for this item is 44 votes because of the interplay between the bill in front of us and the initiative.
The law requiring honest citizens to register each and every ammunition purchase plainly will not deter criminals. Criminals simply buy ammunition elsewhere, steal it, purchase it on the black market, reload their own ammunition, or use a straw purchaser. And I know for a fact ISIS is not going to be going through and having their information registered by the departments. First and foremost, reporting ammunition sales has already been tried and failed.
This measure was vetoed 4 different times.
And the Treasury Department have recognized that current record-keeping requirements for ammunition have no substantial law enforcement value.
If you can't purchase this ammunition when you go into the store legally, you will find another way to get it. They do. They always do. We've seen this over and over and over again. So putting limitations, putting this system in place might make you feel better, might make you feel like you can go to your constituents and say, look, I did something, but you haven't actually prevented any crimes from taking place.
This bill is just a illegal tax labeled a fee. But the bottom line is the prohibited persons that are causing deaths in gang-related shootings or shootings that take place in our state, those prohibited persons are not. I promise you. If you find one, if this law gets passed, and you find a prohibited person that should own a firearm, that gets online and registers with the Department of Justice to purchase the ammunition for a firearm that they should not be in possession of, I would love to see it. But it's not going to happen.
But this bill quite possibly is the worst of the bunch. That this is strikingly cynical that this body would take up a bill to amend an initiative that hasn't even been voted on yet. Really, if this bill isn't unconstitutional, it should be. By passing this bill, the legislature will be perpetrating fraud on the voters of California. This bill is classic razzle-dazzle, bait-and-switch rigmarole. There's a legitimate chance that some of these bills will make it to the U.S. Supreme Court. These are not jokes. These are serious bills that are impacting the lives of legal American citizens. And you can stand up here and argue that you're not trying to impact the Second Amendment. You can stand up here and argue that you're not trying to take away my rights. But the floor manager of a previous bill in a recent YouTube video and the author of this specific bill have stated in committee that they are trying to impact the legal rights of American citizens, that they are trying to impact the Second Amendment, that they are trying to amend and repeal the Second Amendment in California.
We have a database today that's supposed to go after people that legally should not have guns.
Just the current backlog, not with adding ammo to it.
We've given $24 million recently to our Attorney General to go after these people, these dangerous people that have the guns. Attorney General can't keep up with the existing list of data.
But now we've done a continuous appropriation.
To be in the low millions. This is simply a piece of feel-good legislation which will not keep ammo out of the hands of criminals, which we should, in fact, do.
Is this bill going to reduce the incidences of violence in California, of mass murders? I think not. And I mentioned that in debate a while ago. The terrorists will be the least bothered or deterred. That ammo will come. The black market will thrive. Will we sleep more peacefully? Hardly. While the legislature has been focusing on going easier on even the most dangerous criminals and putting more of them in our communities, those more likely, and including those with serious and violent histories, and we blithely vote yes. Take your vote here seriously, and seriously consider if in 5 years this vote will make any difference and save any lives. It will not. I urge a no vote.
All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote, ayes 44, noes 29. The measure passes.
Vidak? No. Wachowski? Aye. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ayes 23, noes 14. The Assembly amendments are concurred.
AB 1511 that would narrow the firearm loan provision to allow a loan only between immediate family members and for hunting purposes, and allow that loan only during the hunting season. There are minor potential costs and very minor moderate increases state and local costs associated with the narrowing of the provision.
By limiting the loan of a firearm to a spouse, registered domestic partner, a parent, child, sibling, grandparent, or grandchild.
Hunters aren't using firearms irresponsibly or in a violent manner, and this bill wrongly implies that hunters are a safety threat. Please note that if you get a hunting license, in order to get a hunting license, you have to take a 10-hour safety course, pass a test, and then also purchase your license and associated stamps and fees. Criminals are not going to go through that process, take that time and effort to do that.
It is a regular basis where this system breaks down and is a cost to the gun owners, it is a cost to the state of California, and when you're going to put an immense amount of additional pressure to the systems that manage these databases for a problem that really doesn't exist, the costs to the state are just unconscionable. You have way too many more priorities to dedicate the resources that come out of our pockets and out of our paychecks in order for you to spend on various programs.
This is not a loophole. This is expressly provided for in law. There's already laws on the books that if you're a prohibited possessor in possession, it's already a felony. So now we're creating criminals out of law-abiding. This is a poor use of funds, and we're creating a new crime.
Lou, aye. Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Stone? Stone, no.
Okay, that bill passes.
All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote, ayes 42, noes 29. Senate amendments are concurred in.
AB 1135 is a common sense solution that closes a dangerous gap in California's assault weapons ban. Specifically, the bill amends the definition of an assault weapon to include weapons equipped with a bullet button that allow for easily changeable magazines.
This measure, which creates the Kings River East, oh no, I'm sorry, that's what the bill did 4 days ago. SB 88, no, I'm sorry, that's the measure that we heard in this committee with the exact same language a month ago. This measure basically, and our primary concern today, and first of all, I would just ask that our testimony from a month ago for SB 880 be included as a part of this testimony. Our concern has to do with literally the abuse of the gut and amend process.
This is not the way legislation should be run, especially in the state of California.
Because this bill effectively bans a class of firearms that are commonly used for hunting.
We strongly oppose this bill as it's going to effectively ban hundreds of thousands of constitutionally protected rights.
We do not have a position on the bill. The gut and amend, frankly, caught us flat-footed.
The fact is that none of these analyses for any of the measures that have been heard today were made available to the public until they were in print and you showed up here in order to get it. These measures are being fast-tracked in an effort to subvert the opportunity for the people to weigh in on this very controversial issue.
And by having a date certain when these guns can no longer be sold in the state of California, the fiscal impact of this bill is incalculable.
I would encourage that we do slow down so that you can at least have a conversation about this. This bill will create a lot of potential citizens that will be in harm's way from a legal perspective, and we're increasing the criminals that we're now going to make citizens criminals, and we're going to be increasing pressure on the judicial system a great deal, and I don't think that's even been factored into the conversation here.
I have served on Appropriations Committee for now about 7 years, 6 in the Assembly and here, and I've never seen something fast-tracked like this when the costs of it are really pretty overwhelming. So I move this bill to suspense.
Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Stone? Stone, no.
That bill has enough votes to pass.
Bell, I. Hill. Hill, I. McGuire. McGuire, I. Mendoza. Nielsen. Nielsen, no.
Senate Bill 1446 will prohibit the possession of large capacity
Ammunition magazines defined as ammunition feeding devices holding more than 10 rounds in the state of California.
The reason that the legislature didn't ban the possession of high-capacity magazines is because they considered that it would be a government taking. They would be denying people their private property, which they legally acquired and possessed, and could not afford to pay for them, to recompense the people for the denial of their use of private property. Why should it be any different for a law-abiding citizen? Why should they be put at a disadvantage than our law enforcement officers when they possess the guns for the same purpose, to protect themselves?
So here we are trying to confiscate people's property, and that's where we are. You know how many magazines are out there like this that are grandfathered in? Hundreds of thousands are out there. We have told the citizens of the United States, the agenda that we're seeing is confiscation.
There is no group within our society that is more regulated than gun owners in the state of California, simply for exercising their constitutional right. The mere implication, the mere possession of certain items are deemed to be evil. This is now, once again, as was stated earlier, the taking of private property. And I will beg to differ with my colleague on one point. There are not hundreds of thousands of these magazines out there. I am quite confident there are millions of these magazines that are out there. And if you're going to take an individual's private property and offer no remuneration, offer no compensation, is the state of California prepared to duly compensate these individuals for the confiscation of their rightfully owned, legally owned, and legally purchased property? California has the strictest gun laws in the entire country, and yet still here we are, looking at confiscation. This measure, this idea has been shopped to this legislature over the last few years, and it has failed and it has been vetoed simply because it is simply not right.
I've been sitting on the Public Safety Committee now, this is my second year, and it's just very frustrating that I continually see bills that water down laws that go to the benefit of criminals, and we don't strengthen laws for the benefit of our victims, and yet today we want to make criminals out of law-abiding citizens.
On the flip side, as I look at the issue, we haven't been able to stop the spread of drugs. We haven't stopped drugs coming across our borders, but we're going to somehow stop high magazine capacity from coming across our borders for those who choose to do illegal acts. Seems much more difficult. I'm worried moving forward with this that we'll create more harm than good, because I don't believe that this bill will stop somebody who intends on hurting people.
All members vote. Desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 43, noes 29. The measure passes.
I rise to present AB 1695, which seeks to address straw purchases by cracking down on the false reporting of guns as lost or stolen. We had some Senate amendments, which is why we're back on concurrence. By adding those who file these false reports to the prohibited persons list, we prevent them from straw purchasing again and deter them from doing it in the first place.
All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 50, noes 24. Senate amendments are concurred in.
Vidak, no. Ikowski, aye. Wolk.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Ayes 23, noes 14. The measure passes.